What if I told you there was a way to touch a man that has nothing to do with seduction, yet awakens in him a passion so profound it might even frighten him? Would you believe me? There's a truth about male psychology that few women know. The touches that truly move them aren't the ones you think. They're subtle, almost invisible touches that reach places in his soul he didn't even know existed. I know exactly what it feels like to think you need to be more sensual, more available, more everything, to spark his interest. To try and guess what he wants, how he likes to be touched, what kind of affection will make him more interested in you. You're not the first woman to wonder if you're doing something wrong, if you should be bolder or more reserved. And no, the problem isn't that you don't know how to touch a man physically. One of the greatest scholars of human psychology discovered something revolutionary about how touch affects the male unconscious. Men fall in love not with the touches that feed their ego, but with the touches that awaken the vulnerability they spend their whole lives trying to hide. And until you know what those psychological touches are, you'll keep investing energy in gestures that might be pleasing, but don't create the deep connection that generates true passion. Your feminine energy is far too sacred to be wasted on attempts to please that don't honor your essence. And today, you're going to discover the 5 touches that stir his soul in a way he'll never be able to forget. The first touch that reawakens a lost passion in a man goes against everything you've learned about how to attract someone. It's the touch of a present absence. It's not about playing hard to get or engaging in emotional games. It's the art of being completely present when you're with him, while keeping a part of yourself that remains untouched, mysterious, uniquely yours. Psychology reveals that men are naturally drawn to what they can't completely possess. But here's the secret few women truly understand. It's not about being unattainable, but about being inexhaustible. When you maintain your own depth, when there are layers of yourself he's still discovering, when you don't give yourself away completely in that first intimate conversation, something primal awakens within him. Think about how you act when you're interested in someone. Do you tell your whole life story? Reveal all your fears and dreams in the first few weeks? Make every free minute available to be with him? If the answer is yes, you're offering everything before he's developed the emotional hunger that fuels true passion. The touch of a present absence is when you are there, completely, authentically present, but he senses there's a universe within you that he hasn't yet explored. It's when you listen deeply, but don't agree with everything he says. It's when you demonstrate genuine interest, but don't abandon your own life to revolve around his. This awakens in a man something that modern society has tried to suppress: the desire to conquer, not to possess, but to become worthy of knowing your deepest layers. When he realizes there are aspects of you he needs to earn the right to know, when he understands that your presence is a gift, not an entitlement, something shifts in the way he sees you. The irony is, the more you preserve yourself, the closer he'll draw near. The more you maintain your own rich and meaningful life, the more he'll want to be a part of it. The touch of a present absence tells him, I choose to be here, but I don't need to be here. And that freedom, paradoxically, captivates him in a way that dependence never could. The second psychological key that unlocks passion is the touch of selective vulnerability. This is where most women get tripped up. They believe they need to be perpetually strong and independent, or that they need to appear fragile to awaken his protective instincts. The truth is much more subtle and far more powerful. Selective vulnerability is when you allow him glimpses of your humanity, but only in specific moments and in a conscious way. It's when you share a real insecurity, but not all at once. It's when you let him perceive that you, too, have fears, but that you don't expect him to solve them. Jung taught us that men project their own anima onto women, the feminine and emotional part they repress. When you demonstrate the vulnerability he doesn't allow himself to feel, when you express the sensitivity he was taught to hide, something deep resonates within his soul. He unconsciously recognizes a part of himself that was lost. But here's the secret. This vulnerability can't be a burden for him to carry. It can't be a disguised cry for help. It has to be the revelation of your humanity as a gift you choose to give, not as a need that demands to be met. Imagine you're talking about dreams, and you mention, almost in passing, how sometimes you feel small in the face of life's vastness. Not so he'll console you, but as an honest observation about the human condition. Or when you recount an experience that marked you, not seeking pity, but sharing the wisdom it brought. This conscious vulnerability creates an intimacy that goes far beyond the physical. He feels chosen to know this side of you, honored that you trust him with this fragility, and most importantly, he feels safe to show his own vulnerabilities, because you've demonstrated that imperfection is human, not a failure. The touch of selective vulnerability awakens in a man the desire to protect not your body, but your soul. And when a man feels that his mission is to protect a woman's soul, he develops a connection that transcends attraction. He develops devotion. The third psychological touch is the most revolutionary of all, genuinely admiring something he didn't even know was valuable about himself. Most women try to win men over by complimenting the obvious things, their looks, their success, their achievements. But the touch that truly moves him is when you recognize and admire something others miss. Maybe it's the gentle way he listens to his grandmother on the phone. Maybe it's the patience he shows with the neighbor's dog. Maybe it's how his eyes light up when he talks about something he's truly passionate about. Maybe it's the way he cares about details that others would consider insignificant. When you see and value these subtle qualities, when you say things like, "I love how you pay attention to the little things," or, "It's beautiful to see how deeply you truly care," you're touching a part of his soul that rarely receives recognition. You're seeing the man behind the social mask. Society teaches men to value only external achievements, money, status, power, romantic conquests. Few are recognized for their sensitivity, their capacity to care, their emotional depth. When you're the first woman to see and honor these qualities, you become unforgettable. This creates a powerful psychological connection because you're not admiring what he does, but who he is. You're not impressed by his performance, but by his essence. And for a man who spent his whole life trying to impress through accomplishments, finding someone who sees him and loves him for his humanity is transformative. Practice observing the men around you with fresh eyes. Instead of focusing on what they have or have achieved, notice how they treat vulnerable people, how they react when no one is watching, what kinds of beauty move them. When you develop the ability to see beyond the surface, you develop a magnetic power that goes far beyond physical attraction. The man who feels truly seen by a woman develops a loyalty that surprises even himself, because you've touched a place within him he didn't even know existed. The place where he can be loved not for what he produces, but for who he is. The fourth psychological touch that reawakens lost passion is the touch of emotional independence. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being so centered in yourself that your happiness doesn't depend on his actions. It's ironic, but when a man realizes that you don't need him to feel whole, he develops a deep need to be a part of your wholeness. An independent feminine spirit is magnetic in a way that neediness never can be. When you have your own rich life, your own dreams, your own sources of joy, when you don't get anxious if he takes a while to reply to texts, or if he needs space, something powerful happens in his mind. He starts to wonder, what does she have that I don't? How can she be so okay without me? And this curiosity turns into fascination. He wants to understand what kind of woman can be happy regardless of his actions, what kind of inner strength she possesses. Notice the energetic difference between a woman who waits for male approval to feel worthy and a woman who knows she's worthy no matter what. The first one exudes neediness. The second one, abundance. The first one asks, "Do you love me?" The second one affirms, "I love myself, and that allows me to love you freely." When you show him that your happiness comes from within, that you have a healthy relationship with yourself, that you aren't trying to fill emotional voids through him, you become an intriguing mystery. He's captivated by your source of strength, curious about what makes you smile when he's not around. This emotional independence creates a safe space where love can blossom naturally. He doesn't feel pressured to be your only source of happiness, so he can connect with you more authentically. And when he realizes that you choose to be with him because you want to, not because you need to, the value of your presence increases tenfold. The touch of emotional independence tells him, "I have a beautiful life, and you're welcome to be a part of it if you choose to cherish me." That's a much more appealing proposition than, "I need you to feel complete." The first invites, the second smothers. Practice nurturing your own happiness. Cultivate hobbies that energize you, relationships that inspire you, projects that fulfill you. When he realizes that you're a whole woman who chooses to share her wholeness, not an incomplete woman seeking fulfillment, his passion for you will deepen in a way that can't be undone. The fifth, and perhaps most powerful psychological touch, is also the most dangerously misunderstood: the touch of total acceptance with clear boundaries. This touch is often confusing for women because it seems contradictory. How can you fully accept someone, yet still have limits? How can you love unconditionally while not accepting just any behavior? The answer lies in the difference between accepting the person and accepting all behaviors. When you can truly see a man, see him in his wholeness, his strengths and his flaws, his light and his shadows, without trying to change him, but also without compromising your own values, you touch a place within his soul that is both terrifying and liberating. Most men have never experienced this kind of love. They're used to women who try to fix them, or women who accept everything just to keep them. But a woman who says, "I see you completely, I accept you as you are, and these are my non-negotiable boundaries," is a force of nature. This total acceptance doesn't mean becoming an emotional doormat. It means looking at him and saying energetically, "I see your fears, your wounds, your protective patterns, and I understand why you act the way you do. I don't need you to be perfect to love you, but I also won't let your fears hurt my soul." This creates a revolutionary dynamic because he feels completely seen and loved, but also challenged to grow. He doesn't have to wear masks with you, but he also can't hide behind his wounds to justify destructive behaviors. The touch of acceptance with boundaries awakens something very deep within a man: the desire to become worthy of the love he's receiving. When he realizes that you love him despite his flaws, but you don't lower your standards because of them, he develops a respect for you that goes beyond just passion. Here's the shadow side of this touch. Many women confuse acceptance with tolerating disrespect. They believe that loving unconditionally means accepting any kind of treatment. That's not love, that's self-sabotage. Total acceptance only works when it's accompanied by healthy boundaries and solid self-esteem. When you master this touch, when you can love deeply without losing yourself, when you accept his humanity without sacrificing your own dignity, you become an unforgettable woman. Because you offer something rare: a love that heals instead of hurts, that expands instead of diminishes, that inspires growth instead of allowing stagnation. Now, let's translate these psychological nuances into practical, everyday situations. How do you apply the present absence when you're talking? How do you show selective vulnerability without seeming needy? How do you maintain emotional independence when you really like him? The touch of a present absence manifests in small gestures. When you listen to him talk about his work with genuine attention, but don't offer unsolicited solutions. When you show interest in his hobbies, but keep your own interests as a priority. When you're available for deep conversations, but not available 24/7. Selective vulnerability appears when you share an experience that impacted you. But don't turn the conversation into a therapy session. When you admit that you also have tough days but don't expect him to be your emotional savior. When you show your humanity without casting yourself as a victim who needs to be rescued. Genuine admiration is expressed when you comment on how he treats others with kindness, instead of just complimenting his appearance. When you acknowledge the effort he makes to grow as a person, not just his achievements. When you value his emotional depth, not just his professional successes. Emotional independence reveals itself when you don't change your important plans for him in the first few weeks of dating. When you don't overanalyze every word he says, looking for signs of rejection. When you maintain your friendships, your projects, your active and interesting life. Acceptance with boundaries manifests when you don't try to change him, but also don't accept behaviors that disrespect you. When you understand the reasons behind his actions, but don't use that understanding to justify inappropriate treatment. When you love the person he is, but don't compromise the person you are. These touches work because they tap into deep-seated masculine psychological needs. The need to conquer something valuable. The need to feel seen and accepted. The need to be inspired to grow. The need to protect something precious. And the need to love freely without pressure. The magic of these 5 psychological touches lies in what they awaken. Not just in him, but in you. When you practice mindful presence, you reconnect with your own sense of wholeness. When you exercise selective vulnerability, you cultivate conscious intimacy. When you offer genuine admiration, you train your eyes to see beauty in the subtle things. When you nurture emotional independence, you become a woman who's magnetic by her very nature. And when you master acceptance with boundaries, you transform into a force of love that heals and transforms, not one that gets lost or diminished. The most profound transformation happens when you realize that these touches aren't manipulative techniques, but ways to honor both your feminine essence and his masculine energy. You're not trying to make him fall for a false version of who you are. You're revealing authentic layers of yourself in a conscious and healthy way. A mature man recognizes these touches not as games, but as signs that he's found a woman who knows herself, respects herself, and knows how to love in a healthy way. He falls in love not just with you, but with the quality of love you can create together. Here's the deepest truth. When you apply these touches from a place of genuine self-love, you attract men who are also on the path of emotional maturity. You stop attracting men who need healing and start attracting men who are ready for partnership. The passion that blossoms from these touches is different from passion based on neediness or fantasy. It's a passion that deepens with time, that survives the challenges of real life, that transforms into mutual devotion. It's the difference between someone falling in love with the idea of you and someone falling in love with the reality of who you are. And when you find a man capable of receiving and reciprocating these touches with the same awareness, you experience something rare, a love that expands both of you, that honors each other's individuality, and yet creates a sacred union. Now, a practice for you to weave these touches into your life. Find a quiet moment today and place your hands on your heart. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, how can I honor my feminine essence while interacting with masculine energy? Visualize yourself applying each of these touches, not as techniques, but as natural expressions of who you truly are. See yourself keeping your own light burning brightly while illuminating someone else's life. Feel yourself offering vulnerability as a gift, not as a cry for help. Imagine yourself recognizing the subtle beauty in a man, not to win him over, but because you've developed eyes that see depth. Visualize yourself so centered in your own worth that your presence becomes an invitation, not a plea. And above all, feel yourself capable of loving completely without losing yourself, of accepting deeply without giving up your dignity. Breathe in this possibility. You can be fully feminine and fully strong, fully loving, and fully free. The truth about the touches that make a man fall deeply in love is that they're not about conquest. They're about revelation. When you become a woman who embodies these touches naturally, you no longer need to chase love. Mature, conscious love finds you. You stop asking, how do I make him love me? And start asking, how can I love in a way that honors both my essence and his? And in that shift of perspective, you stop being someone who begs for affection and become someone who inspires devotion. The 5 psychological touches: present absence, selective vulnerability, genuine admiration, emotional independence, and acceptance with boundaries are, in reality, the 5 facets of a complete woman. A woman who knows herself, respects herself, loves herself, and from that fullness can offer the world the rare gift of her authentic presence.